I would like to invite John Shook and Margie Hagany to the executive stage to talk to us about leadership and really help us understand what lean leadership is like. There are a lot of misconceptions around leadership. So, guys, please take it away and help us make sense of this.
All right. So the pressure's been set. The bar has been defined, guys. You have to be fantastic here in the 23rd hour of this 24-hour event. It's been a wonderful run so far.
I heard good as the bar.
Well, that was the original stumbling bar setting.
And also, Margie, the challenge there, we were supposed to set the world straight about leadership. You got that? You got that. That's
I think I'm in the wrong session.
I'm sure you've got the perfect plan for that. All right. Well, so welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining this session. As you can see clearly, we've got John Shook and Margie Hagany, who will be setting us all straight on all things leadership. I'm sure many of you, all of you, know John. Perhaps not everyone will know Margie. Sorry for that. Your loss entirely. So Margie's been a coach and consultant for several decades. On a personal level, Margie was my first lean coach. I feel very lucky for that. She's focused primarily on helping executives and senior leaders, with leadership things, as we're going to talk about here, recognizing their roles in complex systems and building capability in other people. So I'm going to more or less step away, turn it over to John and Margie, who will lead the session. I think there is opportunity to pose questions to John and Margie. You can use the Q&A function. You can also just use the chat function, and they'll monitor those things as they have their conversation. So with that, I will step aside. John and Margie, over to you.
Thanks, Josh. As Josh said, you have endless opportunity to ask questions in the chat. We may not address any of them. We probably won't, but you have endless opportunity to say whatever you wish. Use the chat for anything you'd like to say. And here we are, Margie. First of all, thank you for joining. Margie is in upper Midwest of the U.S. as I am, but I'm on the Eastern time zone. Margie's the Central time zone, and Margie is not a morning person. So I had to play a lot of chips to get Margie to agree to do this morning. So thanks for doing it, Margie.
Of course.
And we're both trying to be kind of semi-retired, but people keep pulling, or I let myself get pulled out, and you let yourself get pulled out for this. So thanks. As Josh said, a lot of people out there, you don't know Margie. I asked Margie to do this with me. Margie is the most capable, let's use that word, executive coach I've ever met. And I've met a few. And there's nothing quite like being in a room at a session with Margie and debriefing after. There's nothing quite like it. I think I'm a fairly perceptive guy. I'm, with a bunch of executives or managers, and I notice what's going on. But I never failed that after a session, Margie would point out what this person was doing and thinking, and see things that I had not seen. So thanks for joining today.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me.
And what we're going to do is actually talk about center a lot of this discussion around something that you did, which is, let's see if I can pull it up. First of all, I hope everyone can see.
I got it.
My screen here, and let's see if I can figure out how to advance the slides. Did that work? Oh, it did work.
Yes.
So Margie wrote an article a couple of years ago for Catalysis, and this is it. And do you remember writing this, Margie? Do you remember this article?
I do remember. I'm a practitioner, not so much of a writer. And I had been asked for quite some time to write something. And I thought, all right, fine, I'll write something. And what I wrote was something very pragmatic, very specific to practices that people could try for themselves to develop better habits for creating an organization filled with competent, confident problem solvers.
And this is what you've done for decades, and
Yes,
which is what I saw you doing when we met, which you were a internal executive coach at the Ford Motor Company, for whatever, at Ford. And it was remarkable, getting to know you and what you do. And it is very practical. And I thought that would be a great thing to kind of shift this conversation around. If the theme of this 24 hours is leadership, so easy to be up in a lofty world and fight over words about what leadership is and isn't and that kind of stuff. And we'll maybe address some of that a little bit. But the thing is, your approach is what our practice is, being very pragmatic about it. So that's the article. Now, here's a quick summary of the article: practices of leaders who create organizations filled with competent, confident problem solvers. And you have there in some bullet points a set of practices, right? And I think you caution me that you think of this as a set, not the set
correct.
of practices, right? So these are practices you found that effective leaders often engage in. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I think each of us shows up with as ourselves in our work. And my observation over my own decades of practice is that when any leader at any level, and especially at higher levels, can incorporate this with intention, with deep practice into how they show up every day, they will have people who look to them and are glad to have them as their leader, and people will appreciate their role as a teacher and coach to both be more capable at your work and deliver the business results.
So we'll come back to this a couple of times. Again, I kind of want to organize, your thoughts, your thinking as it appears in the article and beyond for how we address this. But a couple, let's shift gears a little bit, because the expectation here is it is a 24-hour telethon
Marathon.
about leadership. And so what is leadership? And I think this is still a common image people have. It's the firefighter, but it's also someone who it's the hero. I think Jim Womack kind of started 24 hours ago talking about this. Get away from the hero, the leader as hero, to something different. But that's Alexander the Great riding in on a horse. This is Genghis Khan, I believe, riding on a horse, and that is a gigantic statue of someone who existed. When was that? 1,000 years ago? I'm not sure. This is Joan of Arc riding a horse. There's Napoleon. I think Napoleon is kind of, a lot of times I think the image, what's a leader? You think of Alexander the Great and Napoleon always riding a horse. Of course, we're in the United States. Many of you joining us are not. And the U.S. is supposedly a democratic place. You would not think we would have the same image of leadership here. This is George Washington on a horse. So this, I think, even subliminally in our minds, this is what we think of as the hero that rides in and makes everything okay. And there are also many ways, though, especially in recent decades, with businesses and management theory, many ways to conceptualize leadership. I pulled this off the net. I don't know what the University of the Built Environment is exactly, but they asked the question, what kind of leadership have you? It mentions 7 leadership styles. And then it's got models of leadership. It's got what is M1, M2, M3, M4 leadership? What are the 4 leadership styles? What are the 7 pillars of leadership? What are the 5 leadership styles? What are the 4 Ps of leadership? What are the 8 major leadership styles? What is the Lewin model of leadership, which I think I can guess what that is? The 5 Cs of leadership. My goodness. And this is just a short list, really. If you go to the bookstore, I mean, there are more books about leadership than I think any other topic. And in a way, you can choose your own. In a way, it doesn't matter. It gets down to what you do, what your practice is. So if you pull out this first one here, the 7 types of leadership styles: authoritative leadership, democratic leadership, delegative leadership, transformational leadership, transactional leadership, servant leadership, situational leadership. And it goes on to talk about why choosing your leadership style matters. So a question, Margie, I think, can you really choose your leadership style? I mean, could you decide to become Napoleon or Joan of Arc? Or think of you've known some good leaders, I think, in career? Can you just choose to be their style? I don't know about that, but I do think, and I think you think, and this comes up in your article, you can choose what you want to be and how to practice. Does that resonate with you and your
I think I've used the phrase, if you accept the hypothesis that each one of us is a condition in the workplace that could use a bit of improvement, just as any other condition in the workplace is. There are very intentional, specific ways that I can determine how to leverage my strengths to get better at certain things on behalf of the people who are looking to me to guide them and help them do their best work. And my own formal schooling is in the College of Education. And so the mindset with which I came at this and still come at this is that of a teacher. So you think of the very best teachers you've ever had over the course of your lifetime. What very specifically is it that they do? And what is the outcome for you because of the fact that they do things in a very specific way that help you learn what you need to learn and be better at what matters in your work?
So this takes you to that practical realm again, as opposed to a theory, much of which is accurate. I hear people all the time describing certain kinds of great leaders. And what can you do with that? And if you bring it into, observable things to do, as you mentioned, now it takes it into a completely different realm, I think, and one that is useful, which I think is a question we always want to ask. And back to the notion of conceptualizing different kinds of leadership. Here's a quote attributed to Peter Drucker: "The leadership that we've had three great leaders in this century: Hitler, Stalin, and Mao." And I've heard that continued as, if that's leadership, I want nothing to do with it. What he actually said, you have to be careful with all these quotes you find on the internet. He said the three most charismatic leaders in this century inflicted the most suffering on human race in almost any trio in history: Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. What matters is not the leader's charisma. What matters is the leader's mission. And I think that, again, brings it into something that's a little closer to home. I can't just hope that I have the same charisma as, choose your most, charismatic leader that you admire. But I can think about, I can determine my mission. And another management theorist that I like and read, and I know you don't read a lot of this stuff, is Henry Mintzberg. And he says we need less lofty leadership and more grounded management, which resonates with me. Again, it starts to make it more real. And one more theorist, who, I think still is very influential into the way the world thinks about this big, vague topic of leadership. He wrote about this, I don't know, I think this was in the late 50s, I believe, when he introduced the X and Y type of leader. And the X being kind of the dictator and the Y being, something different. And the thing is, it's amazing how many things you read online where people still just go out of their way to condemn command and control. And I get it. I think we all get it. Yes, command and control, bad. But still, people write another article where they condemn command and control. And I don't actually see out in the real world, Margie, that much command and control. I see a lot of kind of a watered down theory Y, a Y type theater, who just kind of, it's more of a laissez-faire. It's this kind of, I call it here 1970s empowerment style, where it just says, if the dictators do it my way, empowerment says you do it your way. Here's the goals, here's the objectives, go get it done, give me the result. I don't care how you do it. And my argument is that the dictator is condemned. No one likes that anymore, they say. But this one also is not going to get us, very far. So could there be, let's call it lean, or just a third way, and call it instead, if maybe it's you could conceptualize it as kind of follow me. So that's that leadership, and we'll figure it out together. Or as Gary Convis was coached when he was the first senior leader at NUMMI back 40 years ago, he was coached to lead as if you have no power. Now, he did have power, but he was being coached to lead as if you don't. That's really was a mind twister for him at the time, and it still can be. So that way you could get the desired direction, which maybe the dictator could more or less get, and individual ownership. So we call, instead of theory X, we call it theory Z or theory Z prime or something of that sort. Different ways, even in lean world, if people think about it, here's the, you know, someone, a leader pulling the folks up the hill. Here's a leader pointing to the top of the hill, saying, go take that hill. Here's, you know, leader maybe as a teacher in a theoretical way in a classroom. And then there are leaders that you see a lot of times that are just kind of choosing program of the month. That's still very, I think, common. In fact, someone might accuse your former company Ford of doing a lot of that
Oh, yeah.
recently as well. One day we're all in on EVs. The next day, no, we're going to get out and do something else. So back to your, bring this back to the end to what you wrote in your paper. This is a quote that I pulled out as being powerful and captured a lot of the essence, I think, of what you wanted to say. What were you thinking when you wrote this?
I do see showing up every day as a practice. My observation early on at my time at Ford, having shifted from a classroom with children to children in adult bodies at the Fortune 5 company, is that often people are promoted because of their excellence at their chosen profession. They may be an excellent engineer or an excellent designer or outside of manufacturing, an excellent physician or nurse or whatever the case may be. So they're promoted for their technical expertise and they find themselves in a job called leader or senior leader, and they aren't excellent at that. They wobble. They quite honestly don't quite know what to do, and they don't have awareness of how they're showing up. So it actually requires practice to get a little bit better every day in a role called leader, just as I practice when I'm a musician or a physician or an athlete or any other role. A little bit better every day is what the path towards being really, really good at something requires.
And this is what, you know, again, I saw you doing it Ford, and about 20 years ago, I suggested that you join this. In fact, Josh introduced you as his first lean coach, and that I suggested that you join this this kind of this lean community and become a lean coach. The first thing you said was, I don't know anything about lean. And I said, yes, you do.
Yeah.
These are universal leadership principles, I think, and they're pulled down to something that's very practical. And that is certainly what lean is all about. What can be practical, what can be useful, I think. And speaking of practice, here's a method that you and I both use, and many people use. We choose it to discuss here today because I think everyone is watching this probably is familiar with the A3 process. And here's the question that kind of relates. Maybe people could think about it just in your own head. What do you use the A3 process for? And you could even break that down and say, do you use it to solve problems? Or or do you use it to develop people? Do you use it something to engage in practice? You mentioned all those examples of where you could be a musician, you could be an athlete. To have something tangible to practice with can help you internalize certain principles so that then you can bring them to bear in the line of fire when you're actually out doing your work. So you've embraced the A3 process as a way to coach people, right?
Yeah, I actually whether it's problem solving or people think of it as a tool, I've always thought of it as a framework for rigorous thinking, rigorous evidence-based thinking. And it occurred to me at some point in time, some years ago, that again, if I think there's something I can be better at as a leader, why would I not see how this structure for thinking could support better practice for me as a leader? So I adapted it for use for personal improvement. And I've used it with some guided questions, slightly different thought starter questions with different leaders, high-level leaders in a range of industries, and help them understand their current condition about their behaviors and habits, actions, outcomes, both strengths and things that are more limiting, so they can understand their gap, all the more familiar left side thinking, and moving to the right side around, so what are the experiments I will try for myself to start to narrow that gap and have a very specific practice plan and reflect on plan versus actual for myself, adjust and go at it again. So it's the PDCA, PDSA for myself about getting a little bit better every day and improving my condition to be a solid leader for people who need to do the best work possible.
So you talk about it in a way that either requires or leads to a certain self-awareness and awareness of what this is really for and how this can be, well, not really for, how this can be used if one so chooses. To bring it back to, familiar concepts and people, everyone, I think, here that's with us knows Taiichi Ono, the architect of the Toyota production system. They may or may not know that he spent a lot of his energy on how to develop capability, how to develop people. And one phrase that he picked up on that we think probably he got from the training within industry, the TWI stuff, is you haven't taught until they have learned. And I think that inspired, I think me and others to think, to kind of from the standpoint of what you were saying, can I see myself as part of the situation? And then can I become a master teacher like Ono? And I never worked with Ono, but I worked with one of his, key lieutenants was Mr. Cho. And that's who I, would try to emulate. But the thing was not to try to be him, see myself in a situation and see myself as one trying to improve a situation, recognizing that from a lean perspective, again, I think there are two aims. And since lean leader, I would say any effective leader, we have to get the work done. We do have to design the car, ship the car, sell the car, and make money so we can keep going. We have to be successful there. And that we're working in an economic entity. That's why we gather together. But if we, concurrently, if we develop people to getting them the capability to get the work done, if we do those concurrently, then I think that starts to embody what a, lean leader, lean management might look like. So back to this again. And the self-awareness, the way you describe it, you've got to see yourself as part of the situation, and not everyone can do that so well, right? And so it kind of brings to mind, as we were talking, getting ready for this, when any of you out there that are listening and they're part of this conversation, think about when you use this, who are you developing?
Oh, did you pose that to me?
I was posing it to everyone, and
right.
now I'll pose it to you.
Right. Well, my way of thinking about it is, and I heard this phrase from your teacher, one of your teachers at Toyota, that when I'm developing my people, I'm developing myself. And if I'm doing the best work I can to help people be competent and confident, it's very specific. If you think about, I'll go back to a classroom. If my job is to have evidence that people have learned what it is important to learn, I have to apply those same practices to myself. I have to create the conditions for learning for my people and for myself. And one of the most profound ways to help people learn what they need to learn for themselves, and for me as a leader to have evidence of that, is how we ask questions to create the conditions for learning. I am, anyone who's spent time with me knows I am a zealot about asking open-ended questions that create the condition for someone to think. And then it was from you that I learned the mindset of Toyota leaders, that until I heard where your thinking was at, I didn't know what question you needed. So I have to understand the current condition of your thinking. And based on that, I have the opportunity to ask a question that helps you think even more deeply about it.
So, a lot of the lean tools are kind of deceptively simple. There's what you can see on the surface, the immediate, tangible thing that it's getting at. And then there's something underneath, all of them. Kanban, 5S, standardized work.
Right.
None more so than the A3. I mean, the A3 is
Right.
just a sheet of paper, and you can use it just narrowly to solve some tangible problem that you have, but you can also use it for so much more. It gives me a chance. Let's say you work for me, you're bringing me an A3 to see your thinking. And once I've seen your thinking, now I know kind of what I'm dealing with as part of this overall condition that you're talking about. And then it takes a while to recognize that we also are part of that situation. So we're not only developing the other person or the other people, we're also developing ourselves at the same time, as you said. And here's a little bit of a theory for everyone. This is from Jeff Liker and Gary Convis wrote a book about lean leadership, I think, or the total way of leadership. And it's got 4 simple steps to it, which is commit to self-development. That's what we're talking about. Coach and develop others. That's also what we're talking about. Daily management Kaizen, they're going to embody those 2 things. And then create a vision and align goals. And a lot of people think about leadership and they go straight to that number 4. I get an offsite for 2 days. I write this vision up, roll it out. And then I grade people on how well they're achieving that. No, you start with this commitment to self-development. I think that's a powerful thought. And again, some more theory around this. Drucker also said, management, this is great, I think. It's neither a science nor an art, it's a practice. So that fits exactly what you're saying. And also another thing he mentioned that he wrote these essays that stress the purpose of management is not to be efficient, but to be productive. Now, those are 2 very different things we don't have time for today. For the human being, for the economy, for society. And also, I didn't want to lose it, but Mintzberg again said the same thing. He said that management is more art and craft than science. And first and foremost, it's a practice. So I think we're going in a certain direction here, which you can maybe see here. Okay, that's bad and that's bad. So how do we learn to be this? I think it's highly situational. There may be times when you're the, what do they call it? Inverted pyramid, the servant leader. And there's times to be a directive as well. It's not all about open-ended questions, but if you want to think with someone, you want to hear their thinking. So I think if we recognize this within this framework, maybe we can all start, begin to make more and more progress. And you end your article with this. Again, it's just, typical Margie, which is very practical. Bring it back to the person. You end it with what might a little bit better look like for you today and all the days to come. Does that I don't know, does that remind you of how you probably end most of your actual sessions with the executives?
Yeah. So what's next? What very specifically will you do in the upcoming couple of weeks? Even drill down about the circumstances and where intention of practice will be put into place. How will you gather evidence for yourself? How will you make the time for even 10 minutes to just reflect on the practice and study and adjust? It's interesting when you're so highly accomplished at so many things. It's humbling and to practice specificity with this, and it matters.
Okay, I wanted to show like two more quick slides, but this happens yesterday. The slides get taken away. I just wanted to end. We actually have a slide that shows some resources that have informed both you and me. One of them in there is a book about how to observe kids.
Yeah.
Do you remember the title of it? Maybe if you can find it. Also, the last slide includes a link to your article. I want people to be able to find that. But I think you referenced to me a book about how to do childhood observation, which is something that I did many years ago as well.
Yeah, observing and recording the behavior of children, evidence. which is the beginning of go sees for me with you.
And executives are kind of like kids is one, I think, one of the things that you would say. I want to say one more thing, which is that people let concept of leadership become an excuse. My boss doesn't lead the way they should. I saw something online yesterday. Someone said Kaizen must begin at the top. No, Kaizen must begin with you, wherever you are. So thanks, Margie, for doing this. And hi, Christopher.
For being my teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Margie. Thank you very much, John. Great to have you both. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.